97.3 ESPN presents The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.
Just hungry to bring back another Lombardi to Philly. The fans deserve it. Our team deserves it. Culture begs for it.
Now live, this is Football at 4.
Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It is brought to you by the Fanatics Sportsbook at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. Geoff Mosher is here today. We'll talk a little Birds with him as they get ready to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. You know, I think this is a tricky matchup. The Chargers, very good team, very good defense, much like Philadelphia. Offensive line issues have contributed to their demise in terms of record. The record's not where they really want it to be, but because the offensive line has been such a problem for the Chargers, that's why they're kind of in the spot they're in. If their offensive line was better, this team would be significantly better. They have some weapons. Their defense is very good. And if you look at this matchup, it is a tricky one for Philadelphia. They're going on the road. Obviously, things have not gone all that well. We've chronicled that a lot over the last, 72 hours or so with this team. Right now, the Eagles are a slight favorite on the road. The game actually opened at Eagles minus 1.5. It's 2.5 now at certain books. So people are betting the Eagles in this game right now. They are 13-2 against the spread when the line is between +3 and -3 under Nick Sirianni. So close games on the road. This is a good spot for Philadelphia. 4 straight Eagles games have gone under the total, by the way, when you look at how bad their offense has been. But let's get into it right now. Geoff Mosher's here from the Inside the Birds podcast. And, of course, Football at 4. We all know that the troubles of this offense, Geoff. We heard from Kevin Patullo today. Unfortunately, he had to get asked about his house getting egged, which was part of the press conference there. But, do you have any belief or faith that this offense is turning the corner or will – not that it is turning the – or that it can turn the corner? And that, they're just going through that malaise of a season, and this is that time where you just don't look all that good.
That's a tough question. I think 3 to 4 weeks ago, I stopped thinking that the run game was going to just magically appear out of nowhere. I think it's pretty clear that they are not just all of a sudden. They may have a game like they sort of did, against the Giants, that second game. They may have a game where the run game really kicks into gear, but I'm not sure that they're going to have the run game anywhere near that they did last year. And to me, without that, I can't see this offense getting that much better. Could they have an explosion? Sure, they could go out against the Chargers and hit a bunch of, shot plays, because that's what they do, and take advantage. And my concern would be that everybody would think that they're back on track, and they're great. Things are wonderful, great, grand. And then, they're not. But that's really it. I don't think that run game is coming back. And I think that's going to be a real detriment for what their long-term objective is. Did
you see Hard Knocks at all last night?
Snippets. I did not. I was watching UConn. I'm a UConn guy. I was watching UConn, Kansas.
Well, there's a moment early where he's talking to Brandon Graham, and Graham says the run game's about to blow up. Like we're getting close. And Sirianni says, "I agree. Just keep doing what we do." When you hear that, like you contextualize why they're having so many problems, because they believe in what they do, but they're not getting the results.
Yeah, and that must be the real frustrating part. I always feel like coaches are somewhat cursed by their own
convictions.
Ethos. Yes. So every coach I've ever been around.
Andy Reid believed it was his offense and not the guys in it, that you could just put in Todd Pinkston and James Thrash and it would work.
To an extent, yeah. I think every coach I've ever been around, professionally, college, whatever, who's successful, tell you, and you've heard Nick Sirianni say it too, is that when things aren't working, you don't question the things by results, you question the process. And if you believe in your process and your process has given you results before, then you don't abandon it, which is a good thing for coaches because, like fans and us or media, like we get very knee jerk. And if something goes wrong, like, the Rams just lost to the Panthers, so they have to go change everything. No, they had 3 wacky turnovers that very rarely happen to them. So you just have to believe that was just one of those things. But on the same, by the Flames, by the same token, it's been 13 weeks now, and they have not been offensively very good, and they haven't ran the ball very well. And so what they have to do is try to find that balance of how do they make it better without completely changing what they do. And I know fans get really annoyed. They see the same offense, the same concepts, the same things. There have been changes. We've talked about going under center. We've talked about things like that. There have been, differences in this offense to try to resurrect it, but they're not going to make wholesale radical changes. They're just going to expect that at some point the process is going to work out. And if it doesn't, then the personnel gets changed, not the philosophy.
And they don't really have the personnel changes to make here, right? I mean, there's other than, like we talked about a little bit on Monday, if you want, like, hey, you could throw in Bigsby and mix that up and show a little different look in the run game, but they just don't have, like, that glaring change that everyone's like, why aren't you doing this? Like, why aren't you sitting A.J. Brown? Like, that's not what's happening here.
Yeah, they're like a $200 million offense or something like that. They got the guys that have gotten them there. There are not personnel changes, huge personnel, major ones like you're saying. We've been calling for more Cam Latu all year long because he's a good blocker as a fullback and a tight end. And, a lot of us have been saying, why are you putting Grant Calcaterra out there continuing? He's not even a big part of the passing game anymore. It used to be like, Calcaterra would give you 2 to 3 to 4 catches per game just to, when Goddard was out or even as just like a compliment, but you're not even getting that.
Yeah.
So what is the point of continuously putting Grant Calcaterra out there when you know that he cannot block the way Cam Latu can?
Right. And, if that would help your run game, like you want to be a running team, that's who you want to be. Why wouldn't you take that shot to say, you know what, let's get a guy at tight end who can help spring some of these, blocking schemes that can help us out a little bit. That's a big thing that's a little thing that could turn into a big help for them.
Sure. And I think another help would be to lessen the penalties. And if you want to know just how bad it's gotten for the Eagles with penalties over the years, on Friday, I believe, Inside the Data will come out on Inside the Birds with Sam Finkel, and he did a little analytical deep dive into the number of penalties for the Eagles, not just this year, but in the past 2 or 3 or 4 years. And you'll see some really alarming trends, not only in their penalties, but how they compare to the rest of the league. And honestly, penalties is one of 2 things. It's either coaching, right, from a discipline standpoint, or it's talent. A lot of people have always blamed penalties on coaching, and I've said it's also talent, because if you have defensive holding, if you have DPIs, if you have those kind of penalties, the subjective, more type defensive penalties, that's because you usually have players who aren't very good at covering players, right? But in this case, they have a ton of pre-snap penalties, about a third of them. And that's not talent. That's, discipline. That's just not false starting, not illegal formation, not having lining up incorrectly, if you're a wide receiver. So that's the kind of stuff that really Nick Sirianni and his staff have to look in the mirror and rectify.
Yeah,
and they've killed them this year.
Oh, listen, but you just mentioned about the Rams having a couple of, fumbles, and those are things that are hurting Philadelphia right now. Fumbles, turnovers, Hurts with an interception, Hurts with a fumble on the tush push. You had the punt return fumble last week. I mean, you've had some uncharacteristic things kind of rear their ugly head. So can I look at that and say, hey, this is uncharacteristic of them, and I shouldn't foresee that continuing here?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, listen, I might pick the Eagles to beat the Chargers next week. I've been thinking about it. I think that they can certainly win that game. The only issue is that the Chargers are a good defense. They're going to run the ball. They're going to play ball possession. As a defense, can you hold the Chargers under 20? Then you can probably win the game. But because you're probably not going to get more than 24 out of the Eagles. So that's the only thing that you look for and say it isn't fluky like the turnovers that they've had recently. It's just that they don't score a lot of points, and they haven't really for a while. So now you're asking your defense, which is getting on the field a whole lot, to make a whole lot of stops and play at a high level. And that's tough because you heard today Jalen Carter's dealing with the shoulder injury. They're probably going to wind up starting Marcus Epps at safety. They've got a lot of little things going on.
Yeah, let's because Fangio spoke today as well, and he was kind of candid. Like he didn't think he did a good job. He talked about technique and some of the things that we and you talked about on Monday. That Sidney Brown, not good. Like a lot of guys weren't good. He kind of admitted that a lot of guys did not play well in that game, and he did say Jalen Carter, but Marcus Epps, he was asked about him. He was the 21-day practice, but he essentially said, yes, he will not only be ready to play, it sounds like he will play.
Oh, I would think so. I mean, listen, they have to see how he as long as he's in practice this week and doing a good job and shows he can handle it, he'll play because he was the number 3 safety ahead of Sidney Brown before he got hurt. So now he'll have to be the number 2 safety because Makuba is hurt as long as he's healthy and ready to go. Absolutely.
Yeah, because he was getting snaps ahead of Sidney Brown beforehand, before he ended up getting hurt.
Yes. One of the things that I feel like as a person who's covered the sport for 20 years, I have a pretty good understanding of when coaches and players explain certain breakdowns of how they can occur, right? Like, sometimes fans don't want to hear it, and I get that. But I feel like I have an understanding, even though I don't play professional football myself. But the one thing that really I don't get as much, and I'm probably going to have to try to ask more questions, is, and I think people think this too, is that, okay, you see that the Bears run a ton of outside zone. That's what they normally do. You notice after a while that you are not defending it properly. You're defending it horizontally, which is what they want you to do. You're getting taken from a ride out of gaps and then getting killed in the cutback. I got to think that Clint Hurt is telling them on the sideline that this is happening, that the defensive coordinator is telling them it's happening. And to watch it happen from opening kick to the end of the game, just like the Atlanta game last year, is mind-boggling to me. It's almost like you get caught in a trap that you can't get out of. And I don't understand why they can't get out of that when you got all this technology on the sideline showing you what they're doing and what you're doing as a result. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's the one thing that doesn't compute with me, like how you can't adjust when it's happening to you in real time.
Yeah, and it's funny, and fans love blaming the coaches, and sometimes we just take for granted that. Are you telling me that these coaches can't see what we see? I have a hard time with that when you're around the game every single day and you sleep there and you watch stuff. That if Joe in Fishtown on the couch can make a stupid observation, that the guys coaching in the game in the moment can't see that observation. So sometimes that's why I tend to look at the players a lot more than the coaches are this big of idiots. Like, that's a profession where you got to put a lot of – now, maybe it's the battle of attrition that you just outgrind other people, and because of it, you end up getting a spot that maybe you're not good enough for. I don't know, but I think that if you coach at that level, it's because you have really put your time in to be so detail-oriented, and we always want to blame, like you said, for penalties. Sometimes you're like, that's an undisciplined team. And it's like, how did the coach force you to do that? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, because he didn't have you run gassers in practice because you made – I don't – sometimes it just doesn't compute for me because, listen, you coach – and you do things over and over and over and over, and then you're like, dude, we practice that all the time. How do you not get this right?
Right. Like, take the 3rd and 8 play that Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts, and, we know that Jalen Hurts made a bad throw. It wasn't anything to do with Devontae Smith, and certainly Dallas Goedert was not. Once you saw the defensive look, you realized Dallas Goedert was not going to be a part of the play. He's got to get the ball out immediately to the first read. If you saw what he said, right, on the sideline, he messed up. He took accountability. I guarantee you if they were in that exact same spot 10 plays later and Chicago showed the same exact defense, he's going to at least do his best to put the ball where in the right place that time because he has the technology. He sees it. He admits the issue. So that's why I'm so confused still on why the defensive line just could not stop getting taken for a ride. And then I think that probably means that they're discrediting how good the Chicago Bears offensive line manhandled them. And to me, that's more alarming.
Yeah.
Because they were really manhandled.
They got out physical up front, no question about it. And look, that's one area where the Bears have a really good offensive line, and they can kind of do what they want to do in the run game. Your offensive line is struggling. You're struggling to do things in the run game, and you saw it unfold right there. And it's one of the reasons why this game's interesting, because the Chargers really have struggled with their offensive line, because if their offensive line is healthy, they are a very, very dangerous team.
The Chargers, yes. And the weird thing is it's not going to be healthy because they've lost both of their offensive tackles for the year,
exactly.
Rashawn Slater and Alt, and that's really too bad. They've been a team that is up and down, a little bit like the Eagles. So I think the Eagles are actually favored. If I had last checked, I don't know if you've talked about the line and all, but I thought I saw that the Eagles were actually favorites to win this game. So
1.5. It opened at 1.5. It's up to 2.5.
Yeah, I mean, they can certainly win this game, and they don't have to play a perfect game either. So they got to play a good game, but
I do think this
like week 1 through 6 to win the game. You know?
I do think, Jeff, that this game is kind of a scene setter for the rest of the season here. Like, if you find that you get back on track against this Chargers team, which is they're a good defense, they're a good team. Because you got the Raiders the following week, and if you can't handle the Raider game feels like that Arizona game almost a couple of years ago, where you're like, they play the Cardinals, they'll get back on track, and the Cardinals just gashed them.
Mm-hmm.
This game here, though, if you lose this game and you're on a 3-game skid, you're questioning yourself, who the heck knows what could happen against the Raiders? Because I'll tell you what, watching the Hard Knocks, the one thing I took from that last night is that Washington kind of feels like we're getting healthy. Like, this season has been disastrous for us.
Mm-hmm.
Quinn at one point during the show said, oh, my God, I can't believe how many guys are at practice. Like, this is unbelievable. Like, there's McLaurin who's only played 4 games. And here, like, all these guys were coming back. They went to the NFC Championship game last year. They lost to Philadelphia. You don't think they would love to be the spoiler? And you have to play them twice in a 3-week span. Not ideal. So I think this game is very important for you to kind of get your confidence. Because if you go into that Raider game 3 in a row having to answer all these questions, who knows what happens against that team?
Yeah. And I know, how things are here with what we saw last. If the Eagles go out to L.A. and beat the Chargers, something like – who knows, 26-20, 26-17. Everybody's going to be back on and say, they found it, they're this, they're that. And it will be an important win for everything that you said. But I won't let it cloud what I think of this team, honestly. I think people do that way too much. They go on what they see last. So just like I don't think that because they've lost 2 in a row that they can't beat the Chargers. I think they can beat the Chargers. But I think that the identity of this team has shown itself now through 13 weeks, and it's going to be a struggle. It'll be a real struggle no matter who they play. I agree with you. I think the Commanders aren't laying down. I think that Bills game everybody thought might mean nothing at the beginning of the season because people thought both teams might have the number 1 seed wrapped up. Well, that ain't going to be the case, and the Eagles got a lot of competition here down the stretch. I mean, the Eagles are competing with not only the Bears, right, who just kicked them out of the top spot, not only the Rams, who are in the 2nd spot, but I mean, the Seahawks are there right there. Like if they wind up winning the West, and so by the way, so the 49ers, they're all right there. Whoever wins the West could get the 2nd seed. The Packers are hot again. They figured out some offensive issues and they're getting Jaden Reed back, I assume, if not this week, then next week. Like they're competing with a lot of different teams here.
Well, the irony,
all these games will be important.
And the irony is, the one team that beat you, the Bears, is now the one team that could be the biggest one in play for the tiebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
You beat the Rams, you beat the Packers, you beat the Lions. The Lions are now in the dust. It's the Bears game that turned out to maybe be the biggest one. Of all the teams that you beat, that's the one you didn't, and it might be the one that cost you possibly the 1 seed and who knows what more. But it's going to be a crazy – I'll tell you this. I don't know about you, but Dallas plays Thursday against the Lions. I think that Lions team is done. I think they're cooked.
Losing Terry and Arnold for the rest of the year hurts. I mean, they always fight. They're not a team that lays down, so it'll be a good game.
I just don't know that they have any more fight left in them, man. They have been beaten and battered and all the stuff, and then the coach just keeps going on 4th down, and they keep not. I mean, I think it's just going to catch up to them.
Now, if the Cowboys, by the way, win that game, putting a little pressure on the Eagles, and the Eagles don't win in LA, oh boy.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what I'm getting to,
to
because that means they would essentially be almost tied with you, one less win, but the same amount of losses. They play the Chargers the following week.
Yep.
And then after that, I mean, they play Minnesota, Washington, and I think is a tricky game for everybody because they kind of think that they belong, and then you play the Giants. Dallas has a schedule that they can manage and get through it, I think, anyway. It's putting a lot of pressure. It's very interesting here. Very
interesting.
Wild
fish. It's going to be fun.
All right, man. Monday, we will preview the matchup with the Chargers and look at some of the matchups that stand out to Geoff Mosher. And, of course, we'll be live at the Ocean Casino Resort's Fanatics Sportsbooks, which brings you football at 4 daily right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Geoff Mosher, everybody. Thank you, pal.
All right, my friend. Take care.
All right, there he is, Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast. You can check that out on all podcasting platforms. Coming up at 5 o'clock tonight, Mike Missinelli. He's got a new podcast he wants to tell everybody about. He's going to join me here, and we'll get Mike's thoughts on where this team is, where are they going, does it feel similar to 2023? Listen, it's not the same as 2023 because that team's defense was a mess. It's the same in terms of it's eerily starting to get out of control. You had such a big lead. Dallas was done. Now they're playing better. They're starting to come back. At that point, they passed you. You ended up going to the wild card, and then you got beat in the first round against Tampa Bay. Are we there yet? Geoff just broke it down. If Philadelphia loses this week and Dallas wins, you're essentially tied with 4 games left to go. Think about that. 4 games left to go. You're about tied. All right, coming up, Q Myers is back here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. As we go around the NFL, we'll get his perspective from the outside looking in at the Birds coming up next.